back to the Life Legacy podcast. And as always, we bring on phenomenal, well rounded leaders who are meant to inspire the world through using your gifts and talents. And today is no different. And today I get to bring on Erik Felsted to the podcast.
Thank you, Jackson. Good to be here.
Yeah. And so, Eric, why I feel like you fit this category, you've obviously done a bunch of businesses from XYZ in healthcare and software solutions to building a bunch in real estate and having your portfolio. And as well, right now, you're taking on a big project with North Korea and now becoming a filmmaker.
Yeah.
And, and so, really, you get a wide array of a bunch of different industries. And as well, we've gotten to do we're in the middle of doing a documentary for your own family, which is so special to get to do that. But to help our audience get to know you better, Eric, what fires you up? You work on a pace that's different than than about everyone. And so how do you keep this fire with you, and what is the fire that gets you going like this?
It's a good question. I get very passionate about things, as you can ask my kids, my wife. I pick up random things in history or random interesting things that catch my heart. When we were living in France for a short period, I learned about Joan of Arc, and I got crazy into her. And still to this day, she's like a total hero of mine. Love her story. I read a lot of books. I met experts on her. We did a pilgrimage in France. I mean, so I find these things that just kind of like I don't know if they're attracted to me or I attract to them, but I just deep dive into them. Businesses are the same way. I get passionate about the businesses. I love learning new things. And I'm one of those learners that has to do. That's how I learn. I don't learn by reading a book. I mean, I can. And I got through college, got a master's degree and a CPA. So I know how to put my head down and learn that way. But my best learning is when I actually commit myself to something and I do it. So I think what drives me is commitment and integrity because I decide to do something and then there's no turning back. Like I don't let anything get in the way. And it's hard, because things will get in the way. But when you feel really strongly in your gut and your heart that this is something you should do or that you feel almost called to do, then you there's no barriers that are going to stop you, right? You just keep going. And of course, I feel blessed to be able to follow my passions. I feel like I'm free from the chains of financial bondage or emotional other types of oppression and bondage that people can get into in this life. And so, for that great blessing that I feel, I think there's a great responsibility to go try to do something to help others and serve others.
Yeah, definitely. Have you always felt that abundance of life? Like even in the earlier stages where, financial freedom wasn't fully there or
Yeah, but I would say I always worked really hard and put my head down and grinded through. And I always found success because of that formula,
Hmm.
but it put me out of balance. And earlier on, maybe I pursued what was not my passion necessarily. I mean, I got a master's degree in tax, right? And then I was a senior manager at Ernst and Young when I realized I had ruined my life. I say that in jest, not really. There's nothing wrong with that profession, and it's actually there's a lot of cool things about it. But it wasn't like my calling, and I have this creative side that I didn't feel like was getting out doing that
Yeah.
profession. And so, one day I called my wife and said, "Hey, I quit my job today." And she was a little bit shocked. I mean, not totally. She knew I was probably thinking about it, but that I pulled the trigger, on a career that was a great career, would have set me and I would have had a pension and all this stuff. And I said, I threw it all away because I'm taking this risk. I met these tech guys and they're super cool and they're the real deal. And I think I can learn from them. They've sold out of college, they built businesses and sold them for millions, and and I'm going to have a chance to mentor with them. So I was pretty passionate about that, and that was a interesting road, pretty rocky, up and down. Learned a ton about life and business. So it was a good experience, but I just followed that path and I had a background in finance and accounting. So I ended up being like CFO, finance executive most of my career. But as time went on and I pivoted into new deals, I was one that always had side deals. Like
Yeah.
I had a job early on because that's what you did and you had to save money, pay for your bills. But I always had weekend deals and night deals. And I was working at night, on the deal. And I was just very driven, like
Mm,
to do something. And then what happened was like I had these software companies I was working on and got to the point where my passive income was exceeding my salary.
mm.
So I'm like, well, I could keep doing this and make a lot of money, or I could quit my job and move to France, which is what we did in the middle of my career. My daughter was in eighth grade and she had been learning French and really said to me one day, I want to learn French. I'm like, well, you do? I want to quit my job. And the only way to learn a language is to go there. So what do you think about going to France? And we scouted around and ended up in Paris for 6 months. It was super cool experience. And but we just did stuff like that. And we could because we had the ability financially to do that. And even though it was a bad financial move, like I was making great money at having a full time salary and having this software company, but it freed me to do some other things and to just learn more in life that there's more to life than just working and making money. And
Mm.
like I said, it put me out of balance several times in my life, and God straightened me out at
Yeah.
least once.
I mean, from knowing your story pretty well, at least on some of the family dynamic stuff, there's been a lot of points where you had to put, your financial or your career on the side for a time. And it's also so interesting to like get up and just go to France with your family. That and in this 2 seconds we've been on here, it's like you did these giant leaps, like they seem pretty fast. And yeah, you kind of you decide and you go.
Yeah. They felt they felt risky. They were risky, I guess, at the time in a sense. And not just risky from quitting your job and not knowing where you're going to work in the middle of your career, but trying to wrap up all your obligations in your community, whether it's your kids' involvement in sports or activities, your church callings, and all these things that you do. It's hard to wrap that stuff up and say, I'm taking off, and leaving this behind. And then you plop yourself in a culture that you know nothing of. You don't know the language. It's in a city that you're not familiar with. And we were about 3 weeks into it going, what have we done? But you know what? What drove us is this feeling, this gut thing saying, if we don't do this now, we'll never do it. And our oldest daughter was in eighth grade, and our the kids were younger, so we packed up a big box of books and said, "Well, if we can't get them into school, we'll homeschool them, right?" And it was just for an experience, and it actually
Wow.
turned out to be an incredible experience. And we met some amazing people and learned so many things and learned so much about history and life and culture and language. And it's a cherished experience, right,
Mm.
that we had. And that's just one of many. The summer before that, this was in 2011, March of 2011. The summer before that, we were I have to back up a little bit because my son got sick in 2006. He got a brain tumor, and this completely impacted our lives. And for 2 years, he was in and out of the hospital. He would, on the verge of dying multiple times with
We'll start at
infections.
his birthday,
Okay.
and
So
get that initial
he has
story.
his birthday party on a Saturday, and it's 2 days before he turns 5. And, everything's fine with the birthday party. But later he was in the office on a chair, hardwood floor, and he fell off and he hit his head. And he was not consolable, which is very rare for our son Andrew. And I was out running errands, and Missy called me and said, I think I'm going to take him into the hospital because he's crying and he won't stop. And this is not like Andrew. So I said, okay, let me wrap up what I'm doing. I'll come home and watch the kids. So anyway, one thing led to another. And that night, after multiple hours, doctors telling us everything's fine, but maybe you ought to get a CT scan. Right about midnight, they come back to us at Primary Children's and say he has a mass in his head. And I'm just like, what? What's that? Like, what are you talking about? It's a golf ball sized mass in his blocking his fourth ventricle. And the reason he was so unconsolables. He had hydrocephalus in his head. It was very painful, and this is very dangerous. Like he may not survive the night. And we're like, what are you talking about? He was playing soccer. Like what do you just the other day? Like
So
anyway,
from one day to the next, he's perfect normal
yeah,
kid, hits his head, and then they're saying he might.
not make it through the night. Like we're like, what are you talking about? So they actually flew in a brain surgeon from Boston. This was Saturday night, and on Sunday morning they did brain surgery and cut out the tumor. And it was not a full resection, meaning there was still some left. They couldn't scrape it all out without causing too much damage. Uh, they sewed him back up, and he was out for his birthday, and then he came back the next day, but he came back a different person. He couldn't talk, he couldn't communicate, he couldn't walk, he could just scream. And we're like, whoa. And they're like, this is called posterior fossa syndrome and cerebellar mutism. It happens in 5% of the cases. We're like, what is this? And they're like, well, it's like cut a cord and he doesn't remember how to do all those things again. We're like, did you come out of this? I mean, is this what our child is now? And they said, yeah, most of the time, maybe up to 5 years. We don't know when. We're like
Oh my
in
gosh.
shock. We're like blown away, going, wait a minute, what just happened to our lives, and our son? And so
What goes through your head? You just hear that. I mean, your life just changed in 2 days.
yeah, you just are so blown away. You don't even know, like everything melts away. Like, and this period was not just a one time, it was a process that God was taking us through. Of every time we would just get lower and lower and lower, and we kept thinking, okay, this is as low as it gets. It's got to look up from here, right? And then we would get knocked down again. So we just went through this process, but through this process, it's a beautiful, terrible process that God takes you through that cleanses you, and you're begging God every night for help, and all these things in your relationship start to emerge, and you've got to figure out how to work through if you want to keep your family together.
Yeah. You just said something interesting. A beautiful, terrible
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
I mean, anyone listening to this is like, you just said beautiful.
Hmm.
And this is right after hearing
Yeah.
about your son not being able to talk, or communicate or do anything normal.
It's beautiful because God manifests himself through that process. And while you don't always recognize it, and while you're in excruciating pain and sorrow and grief and all the emotions, you also experience something that you never experienced before, and that is God is there, and he's supporting you, and you see miracles and little things, like just little things like we were at what my son's bald. We went to some lunch place. I can't remember what it was, Costa Vida or something, right? And we're sitting there and eating, and then suddenly the waiter or whatever, the person comes over and says, "Here's the dessert. Someone just bought it for you, and hope you have a good day," right? And then we just start bawling because you're just like so in tune and sensitive to, like, you're broken down in a way that you just feel so emotional, and you're like, you see the goodness all around you, you see the good, that people care, you see the good acts and the good deeds, right? And people are coming out of the woodworks to help you and pray for you. And I mean, guy at work said, "Hey, I put your son's name in 10 different temples or something." I was like, "You can do that?" Like, I was like, but I just started bawling, right? I'm like, "Oh, thank you." Like, I'll take everything I can get, every prayer I can get. And it just changes you, and you realize that there's a lot of good you can do just through simple acts. So anyway, it's beautiful in that sense. And it kind of depends a little bit on your state of mind. Like, you can be in a state of mind where you're just in so much shock that you can't see the good because it's painful. You're trying to cleanse your own demons or get through whatever you have to get through. um, but if you you recognize it, and I'm sure if you talk to anybody who's been through some, maybe not anybody, but a person of faith and a person who believes in God and has been through some hard trauma, there's a lot of people that see that and feel that, you just experience things you never experienced before, like this blanket of spiritual support that just like comes and wraps you around you, right? And your whole family. We were literally like living in a bubble. It was weirdest thing ever. And the love we felt was deeper than ever. And we didn't have to go out of that bubble. Like it kind of stayed around us in our home. And when my son was immunocompromised, we literally couldn't go anywhere. Like we all the obligations that you're busy doing, going to family parties, going to soccer practice, going to whatever church, none of that stuff mattered and it just fell away, right?
What did matter? When
Just your
when
family, just your core, just keeping your family together. That's all that mattered. Keeping your son from getting, you know, a bacteria that will just kill him because he has no white blood cells, right? Just making sure that he's happy and he can get some food in him. I mean, like he literally couldn't even keep food down. He would walk by the kitchen spice store and just start throwing up that he had nothing in him anyway. So he got to a point where he had a feeding tube. He was so skinny. Any kind of nutrients, we would bribe him. We would try anything to get him to just eat something, get nutrients in him, because chemo just destroys your body and everything hurts. You got open sores all the way down your throat, all the way in your stomach. So eating anything just was painful. He just said it's not worth it, right?
yeah.
So yeah, you're going through all these things that you become. My wife became a nurse overnight, like literally was dialed into every single thing. And you'd catch nurses doing something sloppy and she'd be like, you can't do that. That's not how you do it, and telling the nurse, oh, it was
Yeah.
amazing. Like she was more dialed into that than I
Mama
was. I
bear.
was trying to keep my job and trying to stay sane because I felt like I was going nuts
Yeah.
and it was difficult on the relationship. And we were, it was weird. Like it's these extremes, extreme love, extreme emotion, and extreme darkness at the
Mm.
same time that would come. And so, yeah. Anyway, that was just
Yeah.
boom in the middle of our life. But when we emerged,
Well, with that, I'm curious. You talked about how God shows up in these little ways for you. For you personally, what was the biggest way that God showed up in such a moment of turmoil? Well, such a period of turmoil, not
well,
not just a moment.
it started out the night we were sitting in his hospital room and they told us about the tumor. And I'm standing there, it's midnight at Primary Children's, and I hear a voice very clearly says to me, I allow these things to happen because I love your souls. And I was like, what? Who? What? Why did you just tell me that? Like, I'm not mad. I'm not angry. Why did you tell? I didn't understand why this message was kind of sent to me. And like I said, I heard a voice, but it was like, I don't know if it was inside or outside. I don't know, but it was very clear. I hear that. And I'm like, what does that mean? And so it took me many months to start to understand the meaning of that. And it was very profound, but it carried me through a lot of hard times when I just, I had this feeling because of that message that God was involved in this ordeal and that our son was going to be okay, our family was going to be okay. It didn't mean that it wasn't times when it was absolutely excruciating and that I wasn't enjoying this experience at all. But it did give me a bit of peace that I just had this and it helped carry me through a lot of hard times. Like just that was something personal for me and
So
it
what
was
did that mean to you?
um
Now, like looking back, and typically you can't put all the dots together,
no,
and
it
obviously
meant
that was an
that there
anchor.
was more trials to come, not just my son's sickness, but there was trials beyond that that were internal and that I needed to bear and I needed to that's how God wanted to shape me
Mm.
and train me and teach me. And so uh, we have a lot of baggage that we kind of bring into this world or we get when we're young in our families and um And this is a process that we're here on earth to work through that baggage and work through the natural man and become more of a spiritual creature rather than just a temporal physical creature. And so yeah, to me it was something I had to learn and experience so that I could be what God wanted me to be. And most likely I believe, you know it was so that I could be of service to others, and be an instrument in his hands. That's kind of what my conclusion is he wants, if our desires are to serve God and to do it, he's gonna put you at a place that you can do that. You can't do that if you're full of pride and you're full of just if your heart's on temporal things and things of the world. It's like it doesn't that doesn't translate into the way God operates and his goal for us. I can talk more about that, but anyway.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's a level of extreme humbling to, you talked about hitting this rock bottom like five separate times,
Hmm.
where where you're like, there's no way, it's got to get better from here. And just that level of humbling where it sounds like there was nothing you could do except for cleave and beg,
Yeah.
for help in that situation
And
with your family.
you really don't know the outcome. I mean, Andrew with medulloblastoma at his age and the treatment that they had, it was brutal. And most of these kids at that time didn't they don't come out of it like they'll say things. The doctor will say things like, "Well, he won't run or ride a bike, but we'll get him to walk again." We're like, "What?" Or he'll be lucky to graduate high school. I mean, and then you look at Andrew today. He's run marathons. He's going to get a PhD. Just got accepted. He served a mission and spoke a foreign language. When we tell the doctors who he is, they are just mind blown. They're like, "We've never seen this." Like we, so, but why? Why me? Why him? Why us? You see what I'm saying? I know many families that didn't get that outcome. Why? And so that only God can explain. But it kind of puts a bigger burden, I believe, on me and us, that we have to serve more. We have a great responsibility. There's a purpose that God healed him as he did. And he has struggles. Don't get me wrong. His life is not easy. Everything he does is hard, extremely hard. Learning physical things are hard. It's so hard to explain. I can't even. I mean, my wife had to give him a growth hormone shot every single night for 10 years. And we were traveling in the Philippines where there was no refrigeration and the power would go out, but this stuff has to be refrigerated. We had so many complications in the journey we chose, but God saw us through. But we had times that were hard and dark, and we're like, what do we do? You know,
Mm.
and we relied on God, and He blessed us. And look what we have. We have a beautiful son, a beautiful family, and so I feel like my life is in His hands at this point. Like I'm here to serve God, and the temporal things falling away. And I love doing deals. I'm a deal junkie, so I love businesses. I will always do deals to keep the engine going. But it's not my primary focus now. That's why I created the foundation, and I'm focusing on this film. Uh, and the
Yeah.
mission that I'm still discovering.
The last piece on Andrew's story, and I've done a lot of interviews with your family, with everyone connected to it, and it's like a hostile miracle. I don't know how to say it properly, but it's so deep. The hardships, the miracles, the beauty of it really is. And so I've been so grateful that I've gotten to get to learn with your family and through your experience you've had. But for someone that, just got diagnosed with a cancer or starting one of the hardest trials they've gone through, what what would you want to tell them? Say, say it's a grandchild or, someone to come. what would you tell them?
Let me just back up a little bit and give you a little history. My wife's mother died of breast cancer when she was 54, and my wife was 24. We were recently married. Um, my wife's mom got sick when she was in high school, so cancer was very real to her and her experience. When our son got sick, that meant you died in her mind, right? You don't survive cancer. So that was really hard. And then about 9 years after Andrew was done, she got diagnosed with breast cancer, and it was, stage 3.5. It already spread to her lymph nodes. It was risky and scary, but she survived that. And so cancer has been, I don't know many people that has mom has had cancer and passed away, whose son and herself. That's my wife. So what can I say about cancer? It is, it's a this is this is hard. When we were going through it, I felt like cancer is like God's tool that he's using on this earth to humble people, to bring miracles, but it's also like it sounds terrible because it's this brutal, awful disease, right? That's very hard to cure, and the curing of it does a ton of damage to your physical body. It weakens you, but it's also a club that you belong to that you don't want to join. But when you're in it, it's a special club. You're part of this special cancer survivor, cancer family, cancer experience, right? Because I think the spiritual comes more close. You know what I mean? The spirit world, and it's closer. Like we had experiences literally in some of our darkest moments where we felt Missy's mom in the room with us, supporting us, helping us. And can't explain that. She's been dead a long time, and but you feel something, you feel the presence, and you're like, wow, this is unreal. Like that veil, that difference between this life and the other life just becomes thinner. You're just in a state of You're just in a different state. You're praying daily, nightly. I mean, you're praying every moment, right? For
Mhm.
help because you can't do it yourself. Doctors can do all they can do, um, but they're not God. They can only do what they can do. And modern medicine is good, but it's not everything. And some people choose to not use modern medicine because the effects are so terrible. So I don't know what their journey's like. Maybe they can get healed through other ways. But again, everyone's journey is a little different. But ours was very. And when we go up to the hospital now, there is this spirit. It draws us back in. And my wife and our dog do therapy. They go up to the hospital and visit the kids. And she comes home and tells me these experiences. And it's mind blowing
Mm.
how much a dog can help heal a kid, at least for a moment, help get him through a hard time, right? And there's a lot of people that are suffering with cancer in this world. So anyway, yeah, we were very blessed that our lives are as normal as you can expect. I mean, there's latent effects from cancer that you'll never get over. Andrew's not very tall because of that, and he has other latent effects, but
Mm.
the fact that he can go to PhD school and he can play drums and work at a job and do all the things that he can live a normal life is a complete miracle.
Yeah, and like with his PhD, he's extremely intelligent,
Yeah.
and I do know he works so hard for it.
Oh, so hard.
Mm.
I don't know anybody who works harder. I remember even in high school, he went to a private school, so we could get a little bit more attention. But that kid didn't take lunches. Every break, he didn't do any. He hardly had time for anything other than he would go to tutors after class or in between class, and he would just learn and try to learn and understand, and he would grind through it and study till 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. He just worked really hard. And that's just been his life.
Yeah. Well, let's continue with your journey.
Yeah.
There there's so many pieces and so much hardship, but there's so much beauty.
Yeah. So
And
when we came out of Andrew was better, life was getting pretty normal. We had this deep desire to give back. We're like, how do we give back in the world that just blessed us so much? We're stronger, you know. And so I mean, I survived my job, everything. Like it was all this stuff was a miracle. But we were praying and saying, God, where can we go? What can we do? We really want to give back. And then my sister came to us one day. She went to this non-denominational church and she said, there's this couple in my church congregation that are going to the Philippines. He's an architect and they're going to build a library in this ministry. And we're all going over to launch him on his mission. Every time I see this couple and I think of you, and then I see you, I think of them. I think God wants to put you together. Like, sweet. All right. Can we come? She goes, well, the pastor's coming in this weekend and why don't you come? And I'm like, great. So we go and we meet with them and we're not we're not members of their church, but we're there willing to help and serve and donate. So we asked them if we could come along and they were like, sure. And they let us. The way they do their missions is they just get donations, like monthly donations to support them because he was quitting his job and he needed to live, right?
yeah.
The Philippines is not super expensive, but still you need money to live. So we committed a certain amount and said we'll pay this every month. And we went over with the group and it was super amazing. And we had in our minds the summer was open. I had a job, but for my wife and my kids, this was 2010, they could stay and serve if we found the right circumstance. So we went through Manila and it was really cool with this pastor and saw his ministries called Kids International Ministries. And then he had a sister organization down in Mindanao, which is the southernmost island. So we flew down there and we saw this orphanage and it was just awesome. This saw this big property plantation with trees and a soccer field and these kids that were orphans, right, in Philippines, had a place to live, and they did Christian ministry, brought in the poor and would feed them every Sunday, and it was cool to be a part of it. We were there 10 days, but we had the impression and the feeling that this is where they were to stay for the summer. So we flew back to Manila, and then we said goodbyes, and my wife and the kids went down and stayed there for the summer, and I went back to work. Um, it was quite the experience. We did some fundraisers. Like first, we filled an entire shipping container of books for the library, and we had those shipped. And then this Pastor Long, his name was, challenged us to see if we could do another fundraiser and get like bikes and other goods. So we lived in Sandy at the time, and there's a lot of good neighbors and people. So we did another thing and filled up a half a container, and they filled the other half and shipped it off to the Philippines. And it was just a cool experience, right? My kids got to live with the orphans, got to wash dishes in the back with the orphans, got to live in these cement houses with no hot water. I mean, bugs as big as your hand. I mean, they got to experience all this, right? So this was just part of our journey.
What was their perspective on that? Were they on board always
Oh
or
yeah, they're always on board. They're adventurous, and the great thing about young kids is they'll do whatever, right? Abby was at the time like 12 or something, or 13, I think, 12, and so the boys were 8 and 6. Like
yeah.
this was just fun, and my wife, I mean, she's the one that had to sacrifice the most because you
Yeah.
give up all of your comforts and you're just there at their service, right?
Yeah.
And she had some pretty amazing experiences too. She was able to help a man, one of the boys that lived close by. His name was Gabriel, and he would come. He was very shy. He was one of like 10 kids, but his mom had died of TB just a few months earlier. This is this is a curable disease in our world, right?
Yeah.
But not necessarily there. And his dad, who was a farm like a field worker, got grain in his eye or something, and he had this really bad infection, was going to lose his eyesight. And if he lost his eyesight, his 10 kids would all go to the state, right? He can't care for them. But he needed this operation, and it was a couple $1,000s. That's like ridiculous amount of money. So she was there and she was able to, we did like a little fundraiser, like a GoFundMe at home. And I was blogging at the time a little bit, talking about their experience. So we were able to raise the money. And then she actually was part of the experience, getting him to this other part of Mindanao, and Mindanao is not a safe place for most Americans. There's half of it is Islamic, and there's a lot of fighting between Christians and Islamics. But she had to go to this area that was in the not safe zone. Anyway, she had this experience, and we saved his eyes. And Cabril's dad got to keep his family together. And just these little experiences were just beautiful and miraculous. And you realize, oh my gosh, there's so much in the world that we could do, but we're stuck in our own little worlds and our own little problems, right? I don't know. It just changed us. These experiences changed us. It made us maybe have some perspective,
Yeah.
a little bit more perspective on what's important in life. That's what the Andrew experience did for our family.
Mm.
But we're normal people. We get caught into our careers and our life, and then some of this stuff we start to forget. You know, we try not to. We tried to keep it fresh, but life goes on.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's kind of what shaped our family, I'd say, early on.
Well, it sounds like your family's had like 10 lives just in these little experiences. It's so special. And for me, like perspective is huge. And my biggest I would say wins in perspective are the times when my family, myself, I was in like a third world country.
Hmm.
I think that's been one of the greatest learnings that my father taught me was
Yes.
how powerful it is to really be involved in situations that are just so much worse than what we're used to, or the customs, the
Yeah.
everything. It really builds you personally when you're going through a hard moment. When I go through a hard moment and it's like pushing on me, I just think of I see some people that are in Guatemala or Mexico that they're walking days to get water, and they don't get to go to school, they don't get to do anything
Yeah.
other than their day is going and getting water and bringing it back
Yeah.
to their family so that they can eat and like clean.
It changes your heart and your perspective.
Yeah.
I mean, if I could have build the ideal world for Americans, I would say everyone has to leave this country for a minimum of 18 months, maybe 12 months, and live in a developing country. Like
Mm.
in the Philippines, we went through and saw these families that lived by the dump, and their huts were by the dump, and they scavenged every day to get one little thing like a plastic bottle that they could turn into money to feed their families, but this was their life, right?
Yeah.
And so perspective would do us people who are very entitled and very privileged, very wealthy, all these things. There's a dark side to all of that too, right?
Definitely.
And and to go live in third or developing countries and learn what other people deal with, I think it helps balance you a little bit, and it changes your heart, and then you become a better person because you don't look at this privilege as taking it for granted. You're like, wow, I can have a bottle of water like anytime it's cold, and you know, just simple things.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can
I think
serve
it's
better.
it's easier to be grateful,
Yeah.
which I think gratitude is one of the biggest gifts to understand and
Yeah.
develop. I remember there was a time in my life where I was starting to go through like a piece of depression. And I
Hmm.
remember thinking, okay, what are like all the natural ways to get out of depression? And I like would look up what psychologists would say and what are all the natural ways, and always step one was to write down 10 things you're grateful for. And I just
Mm-hmm.
always was curious, like, okay, why that? And later I've learned that when you're grateful, the piece of your brain when you're in gratitude is the same area where you feel anxiety and fear and
Mm.
sadness. And so you actually can't feel gratitude and those negative feelings at the
Mm.
same time.
Yeah.
So it takes out those
Yeah.
negative feelings with gratitude. And so that's why step 1 is typically
Yeah. I
like
love it.
what can you be grateful for?
Gratitude frees you in so many ways. It frees you to view the world differently, and when your heart's full of gratitude, it changes your perspective. Like right, all of a sudden, and I think it makes life better. Like just be very grateful for what you have and share what you have. It gives you more of an abundance mentality,
Yeah.
which is a great place to exist.
And I felt nothing but abundance from you and your family. And obviously, I met your family, deep into after all these hardships and that. And I think these moments of perspective really has given you. And I can just, um, I can see and I know that you believe that to the core from how I've experienced
Yeah.
getting to know you and how you show up.
Well, I'm a creator and I got my training in business, so I know how to create wealth. I know how to create systems that make money. So I realize there is no cap. Like there's abundance. And of course I believe in the word of God, and he says the earth is abundant and he's all powerful. So the reality is this mentality that we need to hoard and to abuse others so that we can grab gain and enrich ourselves is a terrible place to live.
Mm.
Like, flip that around and live in
Yeah.
abundance where you can serve and help others and bring them up. If everybody had that attitude, there would be no poor.
Mm.
Like, if we all shared and we all helped educate and train and care for those who can't care for themselves, and there's plenty of wealth. So, anyway,
Yeah. Well, I just think of the hope and gift that we have to understand that um, there's a God that loves us, and in the scriptures in the Bible, the phrase that is used most is "fear not,"
mm,
which I think is all about
yeah,
being in faith in the abundance and scarcity comes
it's
when
true.
there's a level of fear that you're lacking and you will lack,
Yeah.
and so it's
We
just
mostly fear for our lives and we fear for our comfort. And we fear, think about the things we fear from, right? Um, and those are, I mean, those are legit. We don't want to be in the hospital, cut up because a robber cut us up, right? Those are terrible things, right? But those are all physical things. So the fear not means put your faith in God and know that this journey is his part of his plan to develop our souls, right? Remember, I allow these things to happen because I love your souls. So anything that happens is in the design of God. And he could stop it. He has the power, but he allows it to happen. So he's not forcing those bad things to happen to you. And it's all for the development of our souls, which means there's something greater for us on the other side of this journey. And that means this journey, whatever happens, we put our faith in God and just move forward, right? And just say, this is what I'm here to do. And so when you get that perspective, you're like, well, how many people can I help along this way to ease their suffering or to ease their terrible situation?
yeah.
That that's what fills me.
I love it. And you walk that. Your actions show that. And right now, what's your calling? What do you feel like God has been pressing upon your soul to act on?
Yeah, that's an interesting journey that came out of the blue for me. I mean, I was in a business for almost a decade and it was a great business. I really like my partners, they're really good people, but I felt a little trapped and I felt like I didn't have control, and it was dawning upon me that this was not a good situation for me, and I wanted things to go in a different direction of this business, but I didn't have control. I had other partners and I couldn't make the decisions I wanted to make. So God kind of just helped open up the path. I mean, I had a thought and I'm like, maybe if I find someone to buy my equity and we get a new CEO, maybe that would work out. And that worked out like crazy. Like, this is some of these private businesses are not easy to get out of. You're very intertwined with the relationships and your knowledge is very specific. But miraculously, I found a guy who could be the CEO. He's taken the company to the next level, and I got out. Like, I sold all my equity, which everyone was shocked that I would do, but I just felt it. Like, this was what I'm supposed to do. So I did that. And then I thought, I'm going to pivot into my other business and be the CEO of this RV park business. We have a bunch of RV parks around the country. I love it. It's such a cool business. And I was doing that. I had transitioned to my other duties at the other company. And I was just like ready to put my head down and go when I read this book that my brother in law gave me. And it was about a couple that escaped from North Korea, a true story. And I don't know where my head was, but I was completely blown away, not realizing that there's countries, there's people in this world, there's millions of people that live under horrible oppression. I mean, I'd seen poverty oppression, I've seen other countries that we'd travel to, but life seemed pretty normal. Like they were free to think and do what they wanted to. They just didn't have maybe the economic or the education, or like in the Philippines or South America, certain places. Um, but never really realized that there are places where your lives are completely controlled. And if you say or do something outside of what the government wants you to do, you could be thrown in hard labor camps for the rest of your life. You could be tortured. You could be executed. Okay. So I'm reading this book and I'm going, what the? Are you kidding me? Like, this is like, wait a minute. This is what happened in Nazi Germany time. This doesn't happen today. And like I said, I don't know where my head was and how I didn't really realize this, but and maybe I knew it, but it had such a deep impact on me that I'm like, this thing needs to be a film, like a full feature film. And I started looking around. I'm like, well, there's documentaries and there's other defectors. And I started just devouring. Remember, I said Joan of Arc. I had the same moment with North Korea, and I'm still in that moment where I can't get enough of it. I keep learning more and more, and I'm blown away at how North Korea came to be. World War II, United States is trying to defeat Nazi Germany, who's taken over all of Europe and all that side of the world, and Japan, which was taking all over Asia. So we had an ally in Stalin, a communist ally. Now, we weren't like ideologically aligned, but he didn't like them because Hitler had betrayed Stalin, and he didn't like them taking over Asia, and we didn't like them. So we kind of allied and we defeated the Axis powers. Well, when it was time to kind of put the world back together again, Korea was sitting there at the footsteps of China and Russia, and Stalin wanted it for him. And we're like, no, we want it for democracy. So, like, two people decide to draw a line on the 30th parallel and divide the country. Stalin hand picks one of his guerrilla fighters who was North Korean. His name is Kim Il Sung, um, and put him in charge. And we pick a democratic leader, and boom, we have North and South Korea. And what's crazy is Kim Il Sung was raised Presbyterian. His parents and his grandparents were devout Christians, but he took a whole different approach and decided, I'm going to create my own ideology, which was founded on communism, but really it's more of a cult structure where he became the god, and they worshipped him for 50 years. The rest of his life, he reigned and ruled with very strict, uh, like they put down. He was a militant, right? So he put down any oppression, they did not allow the people to have thought, and he took Christian principles and incorporated him into his principles. And they have the 10 commandments that are their commandments. They're not the 10 commandments from the Bible, but they have their own principles, right? That you have to follow. And when his son was born, they had created this story that a star appeared in the sky. I mean, it's crazy. Like, he's using all these principles from Christianity to develop this ideology that does not include a God. He is the God. So now here we are 75, 80 years later, and three generations of these people. There's 26 million people don't know who God is. They don't know because they've been indoctrinated from the time they were little. And anyone who knew that stuff has already passed away, right?
Mm.
Now, there's probably some people, we know there's people that have snuck Bibles in and that they have faith, but if they get caught, they're punished and executed. And it's not permitted to have any other kind of thought process other than the Kim family, the Kim regime. Anyway, I could go on for a long time. It's mind blowing what the people have to suffer and live through. Now, many of them have probably adjusted and they know just don't go down that path and you can have a pretty good life, right? Or a normal life. It's a class system, so the elite have all the benefits. And if you're not in the elite class, you'll never rise up and you pretty much have a menial job or you're scrambling to keep food on your table. It's pretty sad. But what's really sad is they have this thing that they call guilt by association. So if someone in your family commits a crime against the regime, and it could be something like having a Bible or speaking out or trying to escape, they will take 3 generations of your family, round them up, put them in a hard labor camp. And some of these for the rest of your life.
Huh.
Depends on various factors. And I don't really know how they judge that. But if you do something extreme enough, they will tie you up to a pole, bring all the kids and everybody in the town and watch your head get blown to pieces, your chest get blown to pieces, and your knees blown to pieces. And then they pick up the little body parts, throw them in the back of a van, haul them off. And they make your family stand 10 feet in front of them and watch this. And they say, that's what happens to traitors. Anyway, so back to me and what feel called to do. Producing a film was never something I had ever thought about doing. I've invested in films, and I've always loved films. I think it's a very beautiful way to have an emotional impact and an experience. Right?
Mm.
I've always liked films. I always thought they were really cool, and I love this media. But there's a lot of media that's used for dark purposes or mediocre purposes or not good purposes. Let's put it that way, right?
Yeah.
Um, just for entertainment or just for whatever, like carnal purposes.
Yeah.
So I just always felt like, why can't we support good media companies? And so I supported like Angel Studios when they were young and they had the lawsuit from Hollywood. I always tried to watch good movies. Um, I invested in some of TC Christensen's films and they were awesome, great films. I loved being a part of that, but I was just an investor. I didn't really have much. And then The Chosen came along and we were like, oh, this is really good use of media. So we donated and we became part of the donors to the Come and See Foundation and really loved what was going on with that.
Mm.
And I even told my wife, I remember about 6 or 8 months before I read this book, I'm like, why are we doing all this film stuff? This seems odd. Like that we're suddenly like investors and donors in these media
Just pulled
organizations.
to this.
What's that?
You're just pulled to this.
I just like, and so when I read the book, I'm like, somebody should do a movie. I was just like, what? Me? Like the thought hit me. I'm like, well, I don't know how to do a movie, but I told you before, I'm one of those people that if my gut says to do something, I go all in. I just do it. So I just like, this is what I feel. So I start poking around. I turned the book over and I called the publisher and the co-author. And turns out she lived in Midway. I lived in Heber, like right across the valley. I was like, what? Like all these things were like mind blowing to me. I'm like, well, where does this North Korean couple live? Oh, they live in Lehigh, an hour away. I was like, you got to be kidding me right now, right? So I'm going, this is crazy. So I invited him to my house. This was like December of 2024, I think. And ask him if the film rights are available. And they're like, well, they actually are. We had somebody else had the film rights for a period of time and they couldn't raise the money. And I'm like, well, can I buy the film rights? They're like, yeah, sure. First of all, I was shocked that they would pick me because I was not a filmmaker and I'm just this passionate guy that has a crazy idea. But then I'm negotiating this. I'm going, how the heck am I going to do this? This is the scariest thing I've ever done because I don't know how much money it takes to run a film. I don't know how to do a film. It sounds so risky. Films don't film, especially in this environment. It's really difficult to make money on a film. And I knew that. And I knew that the films I had invested in were really low budget films, so they were profitable. But to have an impact, like I felt like this film needed to do on the world, it couldn't just be a low budget. It needed to be something that actually had the chance of going worldwide, right?
Hmm.
And I have no idea why film would have any impact, but it's just a feeling I had. It was just like, what if you could produce a film that would inspire people to say, what's going on here? Are we okay with this? Like,
Hmm.
people of the free world, are we going to like try to put some pressure?
Yeah.
Or are we going to pray? I mean, are we going to take some spiritual mental power and try to project it?
Well, it's like when you were just talking about North Korea, the ins and outs of it. It's like That just sounds like something from a history book or,
Or
like
from a dystopian novel like 1984
yeah.
or Animal Farm or some of these crazy, like we read that
Yeah.
stuff and we're like, oh, that's just fiction, you know? But this is nonfiction today.
This is happening today.
It's happening today.
Yeah.
And then you think about the global plan and why we're here, and you're like, wait a minute. Why is my life more important than some? I didn't choose where I was born. I was
Yeah.
literally just placed, and I was a baby, and I grew up, and I'm starting to have these realizations of learning and growing and defending or trying to fight for myself, like we all do, right? Self motivation. But then I'm like, wait a second. If I understand the plan the way I feel like I understand through my life journey, how can I sit here and think, well, I'm just the lucky one, poor person over there, that sucks for them, right?
Yeah.
Something wasn't sitting right with me. I'm like, well, what can you do? Like, they have nukes. I'm not in government. I'm not even like, what can I possibly do? I'm like, well, maybe I could do something and I'll put it in God's hand, right? God can do something. We don't know what that is, but he's probably the only one who can solve this problem. It is super complex.
Yeah.
So I get invited to this event in Salt Lake City, downtown, by my banker. And I'm like, hey, Missy, you want to go to this event in downtown Salt Lake? And General Milley speaking. I didn't know who he was at the time, but he was chief of staff for the Biden and Trump administration, but he was a general in the Army, or Navy. I can't remember. But I'm like, let's go. I mean, my bankers, I really like my bankers. So I'm like, let's go. I really like Michael. Let's go support him. So we go to this event. And afterwards, I thought it was really interesting what he talked about. He talked about all these global things that were going on, geopolitics, which I never really was involved with before, but I found very interesting. Um, and afterwards, or maybe I think it was before, I can't remember, but I'm talking to my banker and his colleagues there, and I start just telling him about this film project I want to do. I'm getting ready to buy the film rights, and his colleague says, "Hey, my client is Daryl Eves. Do you know who he is?" And he said I could give out his number. And I was sitting there thinking, and my wife's like, "Yes, we know who he is. He's a co-founder of The Chosen." She'd seen all the videos. And I just hadn't put two and two together, but I'm like, yeah, I'd like that connection. That'd be great. Right.
Not a
And
bad one to put in your
I
pocket.
know. And it turns out he lives in Hurricane, Utah, which is a couple hours south of us. And so he connects us, and Daryl invites Missy and I down to his home. And we spent an evening with them, having dinner at their home and getting to know him. Super fascinating guy with great stories. He tells us these crazy, miraculous stories about how The Chosen came together and how they crowdfunded it and just blah, blah, blah. It's like really cool behind the scenes learning
Yeah.
from one of the co-founders of something we really liked and we respected, and we were donors, and maybe that was why he invited us down, because he knew that we had supported his organization and the Come and See Foundation and just their whole cause. But his help was really helpful because I didn't know where to start. And he just literally, maybe two short phone calls and a couple of texts, introduced me to some people that had experience in this space, that liked the story, supported it, and suddenly I had a little team that could help me do this.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I'm not this good. I'm not, I just see the miracles and I see the things. And I'm like, well, I have this passion, but I don't know how to do this. I'm not a filmmaker, and this scares me to death to try to figure out how to do this. But I just kept seeing all these little miracles, these little coincidences. And I'm like, this just, and then I was really drawn to some Bible stories like Moses and how he, you know, was called, he was this Hebrew raised Egyptian under the most powerful man in the world. And he gets called to come back and free his people from slavery after 430 years of oppression. So I was just really taking into all these stories from the Bible that were really resonating with my heart and my passion. I'm like, well, we got to help the North Koreans become free. We got to do something. Maybe the Red Sea can part today, and
Yeah.
something can happen. And I'm not like, I don't want to displace them. They should stay in their own country, but just like I want them to be able to live with freedoms that we enjoy, right? I want them to be able to worship the God that they choose to worship. I want them to be able to live their lives with their families and raise their kids and have hope for the future. But when I read all these defector books, They had no hope and they risked everything to leave. Like
Mm.
risks that we can't even comprehend. They'll never see their families again. Those families could get put into hard labor camps. It is brutal.
Mm.
And these people had no choice. They felt like they had no choice and they were able to escape. But I read that, I'm like, that's just not okay. Why does a regime or a man think that they can oppress other souls?
Mm.
You know, that's Satan's plan
Yeah.
to put us in darkness and to have power over others, where God's plan is different. It's not that. It's to love and serve others and, love God with all your heart and love your neighbor as yourself. Those two principles are everything.
Mm.
And if we just throw away all of our political opinions and all of the things that we get divisive over and just focus on those two things, there'd be a lot of peace in the world. Like the abundance would come.
Definitely.
So anyway, I just get really passionate and I'm like, well, what's a film going to do? I have no idea. Like I literally just have this dream of passion of producing a film that tells a beautiful story that touches people. And then I'm getting all these crazy ideas like, what if we could use film to motivate people to act? And I'm just talking little simple acts. It came from if you ever you're probably too young for this, but if you ever watched Ferris Bueller's Day Off, the very end, we were all in the theater and we're getting ready to leave. And he's like, "You're still here?" And we're like, "Oh, we all sit down." And he has this little scene at the end after the credits. And then Angel came out with the pay it forward model. And I'm like, maybe there's something we could do even better, like even
Yeah.
take it to the next level. And I'm like, what if they have this emotional experience? They feel the love of this couple that sacrificed everything, escaped for freedom, and they're like, I want to do something. Like they feel touched. We give them, if they'll stay for 10 more minutes or 5 more minutes, we give them some things that they can do to take action in the world. Like Do Young will never see his brother again that he used to cuddle with to stay warm because they didn't have the power would shut off for days. And they're in a very cold environment, like a Utah climate, right? In the mountains, it's cold. And they would just huddle under a blanket to stay warm. He'll never see his brother again by leaving North Korea. Pull out your phone and text your brother that you're estranged to, or your mother, or your
Mm.
your friend that you haven't talked to, and tell them you miss them. Tell them you love them. Just do something in the world that spreads good. And then these ideas come. We could just come up with a list of 5 things. Do
Yeah.
one of these things right now, and it's like the butterfly effect, right? It's like the ripple in the pond that all of a sudden goodness starts rippling throughout the world. So I want to use media to do that, to motivate people to do good and to think good and to
Yeah.
not just
It,
have an
it's
emotional experience, but to take action.
it's a very proper lead magnet, or like a tool that gets people to a level of
Yeah,
emotion where
yeah,
they
yeah.
can actually act.
Joan of Arc has some really cool experiences where there's a phrase that is not exactly hers, but it's been sort of over time attributed to her. It says, "Act and God will act." The true story was she was 16 ish and she had to leave, okay, occupied France. At this time, it was during the Hundred-Year War. England was about to crush France, right? This is in 1429, 28, something like that. And she had to leave occupied France and go down to where unoccupied France was, and the Dauphin lived there, and he was Charles the 7th, I think, and he was this young 19-year-old, little bit wimpy kind of king that was not really very powerful. And that's why, I mean, part of the reason France was getting their butt kicked. And she's there getting ready to leave, and they're like, there are soldiers all about. You, a girl can't leave. You'll get raped. You'll get killed. I mean, aren't you afraid? She's like, why would I be afraid? God will clear my path. God's told me to do this. This is what I'm going to do. So basically, she's like, if God told me to do something, who's more powerful than, do you think those soldiers are more powerful than God?
Mm.
No, I'm just going to do what God told me to do. And she did. And she created this miraculous thing. She is the youngest and the only female supreme leader of any military in history. And she suddenly helps kick out the English. Now, it didn't happen overnight. She created this path where the Dauphin got coronated in Reims, which was in occupied France at the time, which was a big turning point for France to get more power and feel like, hey, we have a king and we can get behind this. She ended up getting betrayed and then burned at the stake, right? 25 years later is how long it took for them to completely kick out France. But anyway, my whole point was that she had the spirit of act and God will act and do something. I believe you do something, miracles can happen.
Well, honestly, a thought that's been going through my head the whole time is like you brought up Moses, how the seas just spread in that moment, you know? I think a lot of our reality is more, and I believe it's Joshua, where they get to the water and he starts walking in the
Yeah,
water with his people.
you have to take that kind of risk.
And but that's the feeling I've been having this whole podcast is Eric, you've walked your feet in the water in so many different scenarios, and then you started to see the water part.
Yeah.
And I know that's what's happening
Well,
right
I
now with
believe that. I'm going on that belief because some of the scary things for me was one, the financial. I thought the financial commitment's huge. I don't like asking other people for money unless I know I can make them their money back. I'm not one who's just going to risk other people's money.
yeah.
I can do my own money if I have enough, and I just didn't know. Do I have enough for this? I don't think. I mean, this could cost millions and millions, and I don't know that I could fund this deal, right? Unless God provides. But I just had to say, okay, I'll put that aside and I'll just believe that when we need the money come. The second part, which was really hard for me, was putting myself out there
Yeah.
and telling the world that I was going to do a film when
Yeah.
most likely I was going to fail, right? Like,
Mhm.
how am I going to do a film? And I figured there would be a lot of people that were like, "You're a fool," and I felt really strongly that I needed to actually take that leap of faith and say, "This is what I'm going to do, and God's going to help me, and we're going to pull it off." I have no idea how.
Yeah.
I just luckily I saw enough miracles that it gave me just enough faith to say, but it took me a while to write that first newsletter. I literally didn't do it till
Yeah.
I was to the point where like I'm sick and tired of sitting on this thing. Send, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, I mean, you talk about that woman that, went out when she's most likely going to get raped by these soldiers or
Yeah,
or killed and,
yeah,
all that.
oh yeah,
And her response to that guy that was like, well, how can you do this? Like, how can you put yourself in this situation? I think that same answer that she has, it's like, how can you make a movie? It's like, well,
and what's a
God,
movie gonna do? That's the other
yeah,
thing. Like, seems like the most foolish thing ever.
well,
What's a staff gonna do when you touch the water?
yeah,
I don't know. Like, I literally don't know the answer to these things, but it's
yeah,
in my heart and I feel it. So I'm just doing it. I'm just like, I will just act. I will just do what my gut tells me to do. And I still see miracles like all the
yeah.
time. Like I'm like, okay, I'm just putting one foot in front of each other. If I hit a wall, I just turn and go the other direction.
I think the fruits aren't far, and just like any valuable thing in life, it's not one day to the next. It's years of sacrifice for the real fruits that come.
Yeah.
And the fruits can come you know in 5 years, 10 years, 20.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter
Yeah.
if they're meant to come there, and
Exactly.
you're gonna do the good
Yeah.
that's being asked of you. It's going to
Yeah,
happen.
I don't control those outcomes. I just
Yeah.
all I can do is control what I'm going to do and do
Yeah.
my best, and then we'll see if others want to join this journey, if they're
Yeah.
willing to participate, if they're willing to donate or volunteer or get behind this. That's
Yeah.
up to them, right? And then God will inspire people if this is meant to be. Meanwhile, I just put my head down and I keep going, and I'm watching like the path clear. Like I literally like my other business. I'm CEO of this other business and it's got investors and but I'm watching what 2026 is bringing me and it's just like the path is clearing.
Yeah.
Like and in a great way too. Like we're getting buyers that step it up that want to buy these properties. Suddenly the properties turn around when they were losing money for a couple of years and now all of a sudden they're really
Yeah.
profitable and we're going to get a good exit. I'm like, okay, I am not this good. I already know.
Yeah.
Like I can't create these things from happening, but I can recognize them and then I can decide if this is what God wants me to do, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Like, it,
Well, I mean, I like the dots that are slowly painting this, amazing picture. And sometimes just like one of the stories. Andrew's cancer story is one beautiful picture,
Mm-hmm.
but really it's also just like a dot,
Oh yeah.
and it's like maybe if you didn't have to go through those levels of being that humble, you know the natural man might have taken over and been like, I'm not doing this,
Yeah. Too risky. Yeah.
and everything that Missy had to go through with all of her cancer journey and the
Mm-hmm.
family journey and the level of trust that everyone's had to put into this.
Oh yeah.
And then you feel this gut call to invest in these films, that are kind of in left field, not
Mm-hmm.
part of your normal life.
Mm-hmm.
It's just this beautiful layout of a beautiful picture that is being painted.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, it's difficult, and there are nights
Oh,
so I sweated all night long thinking, "What have I done? Like, this is insane. Like, I'm a fool. I'll make a fool of
mm,
myself, right?" I felt like that. And then there's other nights where I'm like, "Oh, this is the coolest thing ever. I can't even believe it, man. Look at the people I'm meeting, and I have this dream that's gonna come to
oh,
like I have this vision of what this can become." And I have no idea. Like I
yeah,
literally, it's just I'm following my gut. I'm
yeah.
just doing what I think I should do, and I'll watch and see what happens. And as long as God provides, like as long as I have the health and the financial resources to keep this thing going, I'll funnel it in. And I am literally watching miracles happen. Like I don't even know how to describe them. I don't even want to. Some of them I don't even want to talk about because I'm pinching myself, going, "You got to be kidding me!" But if this comes to fruition, then I know God wants me to do this, and those resources are to be
Yeah.
dedicated to this cause.
It's amazing. I think you just explained creation, building a business. Like that first half was like, okay, this is audience, this is what entrepreneurship is. This is the mind of an entrepreneur that
Mhm.
it's like one day to the next.
You,
It's
you fake it
beautiful,
till you
but
make
yeah,
it, almost. You really
yeah.
do.
Yeah, and I think there's a reality check that I've learned that no one knows everything. No one knows really what they're doing to the extent that you think that they know. The top people of companies, they're going off of their gut. A lot of big decisions are made,
Hmm.
not from like all this crazy knowledge,
Hmm.
but it's just people willing to test new
Yeah.
waters, test a new action that hasn't been done.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm a big believer on risk taking. If you're putting God first, like everything will come to pass that needs to happen, as well as you'll be taken care of.
My advice to someone who's wondering, life is a blank piece of paper. Like that, your career, your what you want to accomplish, just there's a blank piece of paper in front of you. So literally dream it, write it down, work towards it. But like hard work towards that dream is what is how you accomplish that, right?
Yeah,
And everything's hard. It's hard. You could take the path of least resistance and that might be easier, but in the long run it's probably not, you know? I just look at everything about life. Like if you want to eat greasy, fatsy food all day long because that just feels good, you're going to get fat and you're not going to feel good and you're going to have health problems. And you think that's easy? Like
yeah,
working out's hard. It's hard. Uh, skipping meals, trying to keep your calorie balance is hard. Anyway, it's just like anything,
yeah,
right? Getting educated, learning, working on a business, building your career, sacrificing for your family. All these things are hard, but put that blank piece of paper in front of you and dream it, write it down, and just work towards it.
it's I will also say I think building a business for myself has been one of the more spiritual experiences that
Mm,
I've had.
yeah.
And I believe it's because you're creating,
Hmm.
which
And we're meant to be creators. We
we're
are
meant to be
creators.
creators.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just kind of wrapping up, I think your story is so interesting, sincerely.
Thank you.
And so many pieces of it are just, full life stories that people get in it.
It's unwritten too. If you think about it, I'm in the middle of this, not have no idea how this is going to end,
Yeah.
and I'm just going on gut feel
Yeah,
and
you're walking
hope.
in faith, but also the level of action that you're taking too is big. And that's another piece that people don't realize, the level of sacrifice to make these dreams come true.
Yeah.
But what you're saying, the obstacle is the way. The shortcuts
Hmm.
end up making it so you take longer most of the time. And
Yeah.
so um, I'm just curious, as we wrap up, and this is the Life Legacy podcast. Say say today is this room is filled with all of your loved ones, um, and all your kids, and it's going to be your last time you get to speak with them, and they're asking for your advice. What would your invitations to them be?
My invitation would be to love and serve others, and I am sure in my life I've not done that fully like I should have, right? Um, but I've tried, and I know that that's the formula for success. That's the formula for joy and happiness, and just resist that natural tendency to always look out for your own interests. And this is constant struggle. This is not easy. Like we every day, because we feel physically and spiritually and emotionally, we want that to feel good, right? But it's amazing when you serve others, how your problems disappear, how your interests align better with God's interests. And it just, your life is more fulfilling. And I just, I just realized that people are amazing, and I love to get to know new people, and I love to hear their stories. And so serving others has been sort of one of my great desires in my life. My family says I'm a collector of people. I travel all over the world. I got friends now all over the world. Just people I meet, and like they can tell, I guess, I care about them and I'm interested in them. So it's fun. I like that. And it's led me to some beautiful places. I think God opens up a lot of cool things. And if you have a heart to do this and to serve God, He will put things in your path that are beautiful. So,
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And is there anything that you feel like you want to tell our listeners?
I don't know who your listeners are, but I just, like I said, let's be on the side, God's side, and good. Let's find things that bring us together more and not divide us. We're in a very divisive world, and we're headed in a bad place. You just read Facebook comments and you're like, unbelievable how mean and degrading people can be, and they think that's funny. And why? Like, let's not find reasons to be divisive. Let's find reasons. Like, if you look at the core, we are all human souls, right? And human souls were created by God, and we have more in common if you look down at that than versus our political opinions or our business interests or all the opinions that we form. Do they matter more than another human soul that was put on this earth to experience and to hopefully come back to meet God one day? I don't know. To me, I'd like to just focus on the things that we have in common, and you'll see that you don't need to be caught in this dark doom loop that the world is dragging us, a lot of people, into. It's scary. I mean, we got wars going on, and we got political uncertainty and all these fears. But you said it earlier. What does the scripture say? Fear not, right? But that's only going to happen when you put your focus on the things that God is in control. This is His plan. He's in charge of the whole world. And so you don't need to fear.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. I mean, what an amazing message as we wrap this up. Um, where can people find you, and how can they support what
If
you're
you go to
building?
knownbynamefoundation.org or knownfilms.org, that is our website. We have a newsletter. We're talking about the mission of the film, and this is what we're creating in the foundation is a media company that is going to produce content for good in the world. Known by Name Foundation. That I have a whole story behind how that came about. It's not what I intended to do originally, and it's amazing how the things came together. But when it came to me, I was talking to Jared, this guy on my team. I said, I think that's the name God wants us to use, known by name. And it has a really deep meaning. God knows every one of us by name, right? We have a purpose. We are not an object. We're not meant to be oppressed, or people should not be trying to abuse us or enrich us. Anybody who's caught in that kind of darkness, it's sad. It's wrong. God knows who we are. We have a name and a mission. And so the foundation is to bring stories, people's stories, true stories to light. Because guess what happens when we start talking about our stories? We connect, right? Our souls connect. If you, When I'm telling you about my cancer journey and my son, do you feel something for me that's like different, right? If you
Definitely.
told me about your stories and the struggles you've been through, I'm going to be inspired by you and your story. And suddenly your political opinion or your religion or all these things that can divide us melt away. So I want to produce stories where people can tell their stories and we can connect at that level, a different level, and be peaceful and help each other. Let's help each other on this journey, right?
Yeah. Very well said. And I think my my thoughts on this episode is one, for what you're going through, just know that it's for the good, that God loves your souls,
Hmm.
and that when you feel that gut calling to do good, do good. And sometimes we don't know the outcomes or the fruits of why we're being pushed to do something, and you've just been exemplary at taking that call and walking the walk and walking into the water. And so, more than anything, very grateful that our paths have crossed. And your story is amazing. Andrew's story is amazing. Missy's story is amazing. And this couple in North Korea and the film that you're making it's already amazing. And I'm really excited to, be a part of this journey and add value however I can.
Thank you.
But this has been the episode with Erik Felsted, and thank you for coming.
Thanks, Jackson. Good to be here. Have a great day.